After Port Lincoln, I cut across to Coffin Bay. Coffin Bay is famous for their oysters. It just felt like a tourist town, so I do a bit of a lap round and decided to move on. I see a flock of emus feeding in a vacant lot. They didn't seem too concerned when I got off my bike to take photos. I went down to the boat ramp and watched the boats coming in and the pelicans feed off the fish guts. I find a beachside shack that was literally metres from the water. Would I be happy living here, I thought? Well, not alone. I'd need good people to share it with. But that view would be pretty spiff at the end of a day, sitting on the veranda barbecuing up the daily catch. It's getting late and I drive on, not really knowing where I'm going to camp for the night. It's 150 kilometres to Alliston, and there looks as though there's nothing in between. And then I see a sign. Bar open. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It was Tuesday. I'm in luck. I pull in. It was like a mirage. A huge hall with sprung dance floor and a cosy bar. I got talking with Donna, the barmaid, and she said I'd be crazy to ride on given the hour. She said I could camp next to the sports oval. Cool, I thought. The sky was looking a bit dark, so I could shelter my bike under a shed. Donna and her husband grew olives, but also had a solar and wind-powered eco-lodge overlooking the water. She told me if I went to a hideaway shanty town called Little Douglas, I could get Coffin Bay oysters directly off the boat. It sounded like a good plan, and the next morning I headed off for a seafood feast. I got a little lost on the way and stopped in at an old historic woolshed converted into a cafe. I got talking to Jackie, the owner, and asked her if I had ordered her local garfish, whether I'd be able to bring in my own unshucked oysters as an entree. She said not a problem and gave me a shucking knife to borrow. With new directions I headed towards Little Douglas. I drive along the back streets having a bit of a squiz. I gather this town is just set up for the local workers at the oyster sheds. Not much gardening here, just old rusted tractors and fishing nets. I pull into the first oyster shed I see and find a young crew of guys sorting freshly caught oysters. At $7 a dozen, I get 30 for $15. On the way back to Mount Dutton Bay Woolshed, I see a sign for Donna the barmaid's Eco Lodge. I decide to drop in and have a gander. I'm met by Donna's husband, Rod, who gives me a quick tour. They had a great place right on the water and even had a green lawn, which Rod said was mowed daily by local kangaroos. Donna and Rod invited me in for some homemade lamb stew. I just had a small taste, as I still had my seafood feast to prepare. Rod had bartered some of his olives for the lamb, and they seemed to be living quite the self-sufficient lifestyle, growing their own veggies in a sunroom. For some reason Rod showed me a trophy he'd won for Australian of the Day. He got it because he had built a houseboat out of scrap metal. I didn't even know there was such a trophy, but I thought if anything deserves a prize, it's recycling scrap into a home on the water. I toddle back to Mount Dutton Bay, where I get busy on the foreshore shucking my oysters. I'd never shucked fresh oysters before and probably wouldn't win any speed records. I sampled one and they were quite special. The first taste that hits you is like the taste of the ocean, a real salty, refreshing tang. And then this sweet aftertaste. I now understood why Coffin Bay oysters are revered around Australia. I'd never tasted that sweet aftertaste in an oyster before. With everything shucked, I headed into the woolshed to start my feast. I wondered what the collective noun for a group of oysters is. A hard-on of oysters? A squirt of oysters? I think it really depends on the number you eat. Apparently, due to their high iron content, if one feels they are getting the flu, a dozen oysters and a glass of orange juice will stop the virus dead. Jackie had done the garfish in a sumptuous pistachio rub and joined me at the table after I'd eaten to help me finish the oysters. She ran the cafe, which included a section featuring antique shearing equipment, with her two daughters. She was also a pilot and told me how she used to work for 1.5 days in the oyster sheds just to pay for 1 hour of flying tuition. When we look at other people, particularly successful people, we tend to only see the success. We don't always know about the hardship and sacrifice they have gone through to achieve their goals. Jackie had worked 2 jobs in order to pay for the renovation of the historic old woolshed. She was now keen to experience more flying and had future dreams of solo journeys around the world. I think it's good to have big dreams. I'm living one of mine. It's something I've wanted to do for at least 3 years. And I must say, being a traveller in my own country is the most enlightening of experiences, particularly with regard to my search for work. I'm getting a real insight into where Australia is now and how things are going once you get away from the glow of the city lights.